I'm Sweet Deluxe, but you can call me Deluxe or Ethic. This is my solo documentation of my AP 2D art projects during 2022 to 2023. The actual submissions doesn't allow for much to explain, so I've decided to post them somewhere and ramble about my inquiry and thoughts. If you're willing to, listen along as I just talk and maybe go off script. Now with introductions out of the way, let me introduce you to my inquiry. I asked, how were Eastern gods a metaphor for humans, or better refined it to the symbolisms and connection? But you'll see that later on. Why Eastern gods though? Do I have a disliking to Greek or Norse gods? No, not really. I find them to be equally fascinating too, but I had to do something I like. As an Asian person, I felt the need to excuse myself to draw something I wanted. This was a class I was struggling to understand if I even wanted to stay or not. I figured that leaving would be better, but I was coaxed by my teacher to give it a try, and I'm really glad I did. Though, as much as I wished I could tackle all the gods, I focus on two main cultures, Japan and the Philippines. I've already had some prior knowledge of Japan's gods, which is why I steered myself to this topic, but I decided to give my own culture a shot too. I'll talk about the gods, or as I'll be referring to them sometimes, deities, depending on which one I've chosen to draw. My first idea was straightforward and to the point, Amaterasu, the well-known goddess of the rising sun. This one in youth thanks to a popular song known as Kami na Mani Mani, or At God's Mercy, which I'll link in the description of this video. However, this song was inspired by a folk story shared about Amaterasu. The Kojiki is an early Japanese chronicle filled with many stories, one of which is one that I just mentioned. Sometimes referred to as Amaterasu and the Cave, or the Heavenly Rock Cave. It covers how Amaterasu ran away and hid from her brother and husband Susanoo for killing one of her weaving maidens. Of course, just like other myths and legends, there are other interpretations of the story, but what I focused on in this piece was when she was inside the cave. It's stated that by trapping herself within the cave, she kept all the sun's light with her and plunged the world into darkness. I took that as an idea to contrast with what I had going on. I envisioned a dark room that someone would hide in. Whether it was because she was upset or depressed, it would convey the same emotion Amaterasu felt, but in a different and contrasting environment. Amaterasu was filled with light and orange beams that clashed against the rocks, but for us humans, we don't have that. We shield ourselves in darkness with a little peek of sunlight creeping in. That's how I took the direction of my piece, creating an opposite ambience yet showing how they were the same. I named this piece Isolation for very obvious reasons. Both characters in the picture have chosen to isolate themselves as a means to both protect themselves and push away others who would want to help them. There's a lot of symbolism and meaning you could find in the Amaterasu story, but for myself, I took this connection and found how it relates to us. We seek isolation once we're faced with something difficult or heart-wrenching. I find it interesting that we do the same thing as Amaterasu's reactions. It's kind of one of the things I find fascinating about deities, you know? I think that was an unconscious thing that served me to fully consider this topic. I looked at it as if deities controlled us, but later down the line, I realized we kind of control deities. That sounds controversial, and I'll probably tackle it in another video, but that was a thought I had in my mind for so long. Sometimes, we are just our own gods. I remember I tried a design that looks similar to Amaterasu, the human of course. The most well-known traditional depiction of Amaterasu is by Kunisada, who created this. It's a woodblock print, but I'll be upfront and say that I don't know what that means, nor have I ever seen it before. But I think we can see the clear references I took from his depiction of Amaterasu. The outfit, hair, and for lack of a better term, crown on her head. As much as I want to ramble about her design, I'm not very knowledgeable about that yet. I'm hoping I get more opportunities to learn about Amaterasu, but for now, that's all I can really share. When I finished this piece, I had an assignment to write down other people's interpretations. I got the help of my friends to hear out with their thoughts, which was nice. For the most part, everyone caught on in a negative feeling, but all of them had varying responses which I found interesting. Someone interpreted that she was someone seeking help and shelter, another saw her distress about being trapped, and the last pinpointed the isolation I was hoping to convey. But at the same time, the other two weren't wrong. When we feel distressed, we try to find shelter and somewhere safe, but sometimes where we feel the most safest becomes a trap for us. Speaking of, I've always loved the ending of the story. Many gods gather around to throw a party that gets Amaterasu's attention. Even the original story depicts a very silly scene where a god reveals the privates and dances around. But to me, the connection to us still remains in a silly and maybe convoluted way. We're all curious. We have the fear of missing out. So when we hear about something that's going on, there's always a part of us glancing over to see what it's about. The curiosity drags us out of our isolation, our sanctuary. While we're leaving our so called safe space, I think it reassures us that our friends are always there for us. After all, I believe we all have a reason to exist. Just like how Amaterasu shines her rays on others, I believe we make someone else's day, even if we don't know it. Anyway, that's really all I have to say. This is my first piece of my AP art journey, but I remember being so happy about it. I had my other sketches planned out, so I was definitely excited to continue. Now, thank you for listening and thank you for your time. Maybe I'll see you around. Have a wonderful time.